You know, it wasn't just Cleveland, though. It was the entire preseason he played well.
Well, the preseason game, you can't practice it.
But games as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Cleveland game was the one that I really, used more so because everybody, the concentration was so much on Favre. But no, you're right. I mean, against the Eagles, he was okay, although Eric Ainge actually probably was the best quarterback on the field for the Jets in that game, that fourth preseason game. But, no, I mean, look, Chad Pennington, when they had the competition between Pennington and Clemens, Pennington clearly was ahead of everybody, but the second-best quarterback, without question, was Brett Ratliff. But here's the problem. Do you want to anoint him as your starter when he has taken 0 snaps in an NFL regular season game? Now, the counter-argument to that might be, well, how many regular season snaps did Matt Castle take? And, I would not have a great counter-argument for that other than to say, the Jets don't have Wes Welker and Randy Moss, but, you can find a diamond in the rough, and there are people in the Jets organization that think Brett Ratliff, could be that.
The thing that I have a problem with having Brett Ratliff being a starter is I think the Jets have talent around the rest in talent in different positions, offensively and defensively, where they're almost in position to contend now. And I think if you're throwing Ratliff or a rookie in, that might take away from the rest of the team's success. So I think getting a veteran like maybe Jeff Garcia or Kerry Collins might be a better route. Also, what do you think about guys like Byron Leftwich? Or names like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I threw out Leftwich earlier, and he would be my first choice because he's younger, and, he did lead Jacksonville to a playoff appearance and played really well that year. He would definitely be one of the initial guys that I would try to contact if I were the Jets. Now, the thing of it is, with all of these guys, is I'm not sure what the Jets are going to be able to afford to do. You have to remember, the Jets, they released, they get $13 million that come off the salary cap with Favre's retirement, but a good portion of that is going to have to be used to sign their rookie class. This is not going to be a big free agent year for the Jets. They're going to pick one or two guys that they're going to go after, but they're not going to be huge splashes. I mean, I think Jim Leonard, the safety from Baltimore, that might be the biggest splash that they make if they can get him. They're going to have competition for him. But, I like Leftwich. I think Garcia would be a decent call. But here's the thing about starting a rookie or a young guy that doesn't have a lot of experience. We saw with Atlanta this year, and we also saw with Baltimore this year, that you can win with a guy like that if all the other pieces are in place. And if you look at this Jets team, you can make an argument with the exception of wide receiver. Most of those pieces are in place on both sides of the ball. They need receiver help. They need secondary help. But, I think roster-wise, this is a playoff team.
All right, well, now that Favre watch is over, if you can't tell if I'm a little bit cynical about it, let's start talking about some of the other things. The Jets now freed up a bunch of cap room. Like you said, it's not going to be a huge offseason for them because since they made so many signings last year. But is receiver the spot where you think that they really need help? Because I'm telling you that I haven't seen the same Lavernius Coles that I've seen in the past, and I think it's about time that the Jets upgrade at that position.
Well, no, I agree with you. I mean, that's they have missed. I mean, look, Favre wasn't what he once was in terms of throwing the ball deep. I think we all saw that last year. But he had no outside threat to throw to. Their fastest guy was David Clowney, and he couldn't get on the field for whatever reason. I think that's going to change this year. They need a big receiver. They need an outside threat. And the problem with Lavernius Coles is they guaranteed his contract last year. So unless they can execute a trade for him, Coles is going to be back next season. And, that could be a potential problem because I'm not sure, not sure how much he would like a de-emphasized role. But either draft or free agent, or maybe you get a diamond in the rough, David Clowney emerges. But, no, I mean, if I'm listing needs, I'm going secondary and then receiver right after that.
So continuing with the free agency talk, if you're saying Jim Leonard's going to be perhaps the biggest move they're making, you're not buying the Ray Lewis Pro Bowl intrigue in playing in green next season?
Well, there's two things with that. First off, there's a lot of talk in Baltimore now that they're going to make a real strong effort now to hang on to him, and I think that that's probably the prudent thing to do. He's one of those guys that probably should end his career with one team. But even if they can't come to an agreement, meaning Baltimore, with Ray Lewis, the Jets can't afford him. Because if he can't come to terms with Baltimore, that means that he's saying no to probably $8-9 million a year. I mean, I think Lewis is a guy that's going to get 10 or 11 with probably 20 guaranteed. And the Jets unless they cut half their roster, they're not going to be able to afford to pay a guy like Ray Lewis. End of story. So I don't see that happening. I think Bart Scott would be an outside possibility for the Jets because I don't think he would command quite as much. But again, I just don't see them because of all the money they spent last off season. I just don't think that they can get even one big money guy. I think they're going to have to spend very judiciously this off season. And a guy like Ray Lewis, I just don't think they could fit him in.
And we'll end the way we started, Eric. The Joe Namath era in St. Louis was not remembered very well. In fact, it's a small tidbit that Anthony loves to bring up all the time. Considering the fanfare, considering what he was brought here to do, considering that we thought, and I think rightly so, we all figured it was a one-year commitment. Can the Favre era in green be considered anything less than a failure?
No. Hey, look, I know I told you guys this, or you, Jordan, when I was on with you, right after they made the trade. I think you asked me a question along those lines, and I said that, and I said this several times at the time of the trade, and I've said it a few times today, that the Jets thought they were a borderline playoff team before they made the trade for Favre. They thought with either whoever won that quarterback battle between Pennington and Clemens, they felt either one of those guys could win 9 games, maybe get lucky and win 10, and the Jets would sneak into the playoffs as a wild card. They made the Favre trade for one explicit reason. It was because they thought he would be the missing link to push them into the playoffs. So if that's your rationale for trading for Favre and you don't make the playoffs, it has to go down as nothing but a failure. So, Jordan, I agree wholeheartedly with that, and it was a move at the time that I thought the Jets should have made. It was a worthwhile gamble. I won't criticize them for making the move, but it does sound disingenuous when you hear Tannenbaum or Woody Johnson talk about what a successful year that it was, because there's a lot of people, and I think themselves included, that think they could have won 9 games had they not made the Favre trade. So, in the black and white, world that we live in, particularly when it comes to sports, it was a failure. They didn't make the playoffs, and that's what they brought him in to do.
Well, Erik Boland from Newsday. Eric, you've had a long day. Go have dinner. What's on tap for dinner with Erik Boland tonight?
It might. I cut out fast food a few years ago, but I might stop at McDonald's and break down.
I had McDonald's tonight too. I had McDonald's as well.
Yeah, it's one of those vices that you probably should try to phase out, but on occasion I feel the need to phase it back in.
All right. Well, Erik Boland, Newsday. Eric, thanks so much for joining us at this late hour.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.